and I wanted to do something out of the norm, I wasn't worried about what the other kids was going to think. I wanted to go do the shit that I wanted to do. Like, and that's how we all should go about life and about the shit that we want to do and the goals that we want to achieve. We should not be worried about other people's public perception or private perception of what they think about us.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to like how kids are, because this past weekend I got to be a part of this, it was like an evening choir for like this boys choir. And you know, kids are just so free, and they don't have any limitations on their mind at all.
Depends on what type of environment they in.
And who they're raised with, that's true. But you know, if you really don't let which that's hard, you know, because it's like you can't really not impact a child. But I think when you let a child just be themselves, like they're going to be themselves, and they're not going to have any limitations on their mind, because nobody has ever placed those limitations on them if that's how they were, you know, raised or nurtured. But yeah, going back to like doing it now, I think even us moving, like that was something where so many people still ask me till this day, like, how did you get the guts to move? Or, you know, I can't believe that you did that. You know, that was a big drastic change. And it goes back to
not being afraid.
Yeah, not being afraid. Because there's always going to be a risk with things. And also, if you don't, I feel like sometimes when you don't take that risk or you don't do it yourself, there's going to be something that life throws at you either way. Whether you decide to take like an action or you don't. You know, going back to our conversation that we just had this weekend, you know, I was telling you something like, oh, I want this to happen. And then it happened today. And it, you know, I know we're huge believers in manifestation, but it goes back to like your thoughts, your beliefs. What are you putting out in the universe? What do you want to attract? And tiny steps build compound, you know, those like tiny steps. I think going back to, you know, doing it scared, you don't have to do everything from one day to the next day. You know, maybe one day you do like a small task and then the next day you do another thing. But like, what are those like tiny things that you're doing every single day to do that hard macro task, you know? Because I think that also another good point is that we don't always have to like do something hard all together. I think that that's another huge reason that stops a lot of people, is that they think like, oh, this huge thing or this thing that I want to do is so hard and it's going to take this many hours or it's going to be so hard. But again, how do you know it's hard when you haven't even done anything to try? You know, that's just the perception you have in your mind.
Mm-hmm. People are afraid to take that risk. And when you are afraid to take risk, you don't necessarily strategically do the shit that you're supposed to be doing. That's why people fail.
You know what I just remembered is how you would always tell me, just say yes and we'll figure it out. That's something that you've always done. Like you've always said yes and we'll just figure it out as we go. And I've always been more of a, well, what's the plan? You know, what's like the 1, 2, 3? And I don't know if this is just like a men thing, or I don't even think it is, because some men don't think like that. I really think it's you, and you're just so confident and like, we're just going to figure it out and that's it.
Yeah, and that's simply because of experience with figuring shit the fuck out. Like, it's like you gain your confidence from the stuff that you already achieved. So just over time, it just compounds the fact I keep winning. I haven't lost yet. And if I did lose, it was like a small battle or a small game. But I just keep winning. I keep winning because I keep trying to do new shit. And constantly over time, you just keep winning because that's just your path, and that's all you know. Like, it's like when a kid goes from playing Little League, right? And then they get to the minors, and they winners in the Little League, they winners in the minors, and then guess what? They eventually gonna be winners in the majors because they've been winning all their life. So it's like,
and it just reminds me that, you know, the more that you do these things that you said you were gonna do, the more it builds confidence in yourself. And not only that, but the more it gets easier. You know, just because something is hard at the beginning doesn't mean it's always gonna be hard. And also going back to,
I don't know if it gets easier, but.
And also going back to doing new things, I think a lot of people think that new things are hard. You know, that's just our perception and what we think is going to be hard. But 9 out of 10 times is not hard. It's only hard because we're doing it for the first time.